السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ثم أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: وهي تجري بهم في موج كالجبال ونادى نوح ابنه وكان في معزل يا بني اركب معنا ولا تكن مع الكافرين. قال سآوي إلى جبل يعصمني من الماء قال لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله إلا من رحم وحال بينهما الموج فكان من المغرقين. Bismillah. I started inshallah with the ayat of the Quran that I wanted to highlight today to go along with the message inshallah of the khutbah. So Allah Azza wa Jal paints the scene of Nuh alayhi salam and the believers in the ark. And Nuh alayhi salam, he looks into the water and he sees his son. So he says to him, "O my son, come aboard with us and be not with the disbelievers." So his son says a comment to him that we have seen today a lot with the youth. He said something of rationalism, something of science. He said, "I will take refuge on a mountain to protect me from the water." So Nuh alayhi salam, he tells him what he cannot understand. He says there is no protection except from Allah whom He has decreed on His mercy. Meaning even though you think, even though everything's telling you here that if you go to this mountain you'll be saved, it's not true. Why? Because Nuh alayhi salam, he has some knowledge from Allah Azza wa Jal, that his son doesn't have. And likewise, brothers and sisters in Islam, I want to let you guys know that we here in the West, here in non-Islamic countries, have put our children in this water. And we have told them to swim. Now, what does this mean for all of us? What does this mean? Nuh alayhi salam, on the Day of Judgment, Allah Azza wa Jal will ask him about his son. And he will be able to say, "Oh Allah, I have done my part. I have taught him everything I know." And Allah guides whom He wills. And Allah will accept that from him. But can we say the same about our children? I have many parents who come to me and say similar things. They say, "My child will not listen to me." What do I do? My child is not praying. How can I change this? Inshallah, we will talk about certain strategies that, inshallah, we will try to implement. And by that, I mean myself included. So inshallah, I want everyone to just give me these 30 minutes of your time. Pay attention. Let's not waste my time, your time. Let's all benefit here, inshallah. We only get 30 minutes together, so let's try to pay attention to the khutbah, bi'idhnillah. First, we need to understand that raising your children is your responsibility. As the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible for his flock." And the hadith goes on, but I just took this excerpt out of it. What does this mean? This means just like a shepherd of sheep, you would be responsible for your flock. If one of your sheep drowns in the river, you cannot say, "Well, it's the sheep's fault. I was just simply going this way and the sheep jumped into the water." Everyone will say, "No, it's your fault. You're the shepherd. You should take care of your sheep." Likewise with your children. Do not say, "I've done my part," unless you're willing to say that in front of Allah Azza wa Jal and you mean it. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "There is no slave to whom Allah has entrusted the care of people, and he dies neglecting his flock, but Allah will forbid paradise to him." Once we understand these two ahadith together, we should understand that our children, our households, are our responsibility. Once we come to this understanding, then we'll have a more open mind as to how to protect the next generation. And for many of us who are not from America, who have not been born here, it is a big difference. It's a big change of culture. You are not American, your children are American. What does that mean? Inshallah, I will try to dissect this a little bit just so you have a better understanding. Obviously, there is no cookie cutter process. I can tell you what to do with your child, but the same thing might not work for you. I can tell this person, "Do this with your kid," and it'll work. I'll tell the exact same thing to the next person, it won't work. Why? Because we are human, we're all different. And that is why we need to understand our children. And that understanding comes through dialogue, comes through simple dialogue. Have a speech, talk with your children. I've seen parents talk with their children, it's cringeworthy. They cannot have a simple conversation without some type of weirdness to it. Why is that the case? It's because it doesn't happen enough. It doesn't happen often enough. That talk between parent and child isn't there enough. So when an important thing is to be discussed, what ends up happening is that the child is going to think, "This is just like everything else. I don't need to listen to it." Rather, if you had an open dialogue with your child, then important things would be just as important as not important things. So, one thing that I stress to people who are not born into a Muslim country, and I'm being one of them, I'm from here, is that we don't have the background of society. In Pakistan, in Egypt, in Palestine, it's in your curriculum at school. Islam, Quran, Hadith. It's in your curriculum. It's in your very nature. As an American, we don't grow up with that. And that is why you see many American children, Muslims, leaving Islam. Rather, you'll see older generation committing every haram in the book, but they will never leave Islam. Why is that the case? Why is that the case? It's because it's indoctrined in them. But we Americans, we don't have that indoctrination in us. And the only source of Islam that we get, especially going to public schools, is from the household. So if it's not there, it won't be there. So we're going to go and talk about the first strategy. But before then, we're going to talk about Ali ibn Abi Talib radhiyallahu anhu. He has a beautiful, beautiful statement. He says, "Do not raise your kids like your fathers raised you, because you were raised based on your times and not on your children's times." Times are changed, and what worked for you is not going to work for me. I mean, just a smartphone has changed the world. You didn't have this growing up. So the first strategy, and this is the most important strategy, is you need to learn about Islam. You yourself need to learn about Islam. Why do we not know basics of Islam? And I'm talking about the older generation here. How do you expect your kid to know the tahiyyat when you yourself don't know how to say the tahiyyat properly? How can we expect our kid to wake up for Fajr when you yourself do not wake up for Fajr? How can we expect our kid to become Hafidh when you yourself don't have Juz' Amma memorized? This is hypocrisy. And your child will expose it. They know. They're not ignorant. You cannot expect too much from your children, and you yourself don't have much expectations on yourself. So this needs to change. So the first thing you need to do is learn about Islam. Learn basics. Every day, every week, pick up a book, read a page, read a hadith, listen to a lecture, something small. And then you can share that with your children, with your family. Abu Hurairah reported that the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "If anyone pursues a path in search of knowledge, Allah will then make easy for him a path to paradise. And he who is made slow by his actions will not be speeded up by his genealogy." What does this mean? This basically means that on your way to learn about Islam, you're also helping your akhirah. You're helping go to paradise. You're helping yourself go to paradise. I mean, it's a win-win situation. The only thing is that it's not tangible. You're not receiving anything in this world. That is very hard for humanity, right? Humanity is very, give me in my hand, let me see with my eyes. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. But we as Muslims believe in akhirah. And no one here will say akhirah doesn't exist. So therefore, we need to work for it and not just abandon it. So when you teach your kids, when you learn yourself about Islam, then your kids will take that knowledge and they should go a step further. And this way, we're going up. But in reality, our cycle is down. We know nothing about Islam, but the little bit that we learned from our parents. We teach nothing to our children, so now they know nothing. So now we're going down in a downward spiral. And I'll tell you guys this story about a local imam who told me this story. He said one day, parents called him, and they said, "Oh imam, we need you to talk to our 15-year-old. He's saying some weird things." So he said, "Okay, bring him." These people have never come to the masjid, but they must live close by, must Google the closest masjid to them. So the boy comes in and he says, "I became Christian," 15-year-old boy. He said, "I became Christian." He said, "Why did you become Christian?" He said, "Oh, Jesus is going to die for my sins," all this stuff. He said, "What do you know about Islam?" He asked the kid, "What do you know about Islam?" The kid said, "Not much." So he said, "Let me ask you something. Have you ever prayed?" So the 15-year-old looks at him and he says, "I've never prayed." So then the dad says, "See, how can you disprove Islam if you've never prayed?" So the kid looks at his parents and says, "You don't pray." So once he looks at his parents and he says, "You don't pray," the imam, he understands the situation here. There's nothing much he can do. I can't have 5 minutes with your kid. I'm not going to change your kid's mind. You spend most of your time around your children, but yet they're not benefiting from you. And this is what needs to change. And with Islamic knowledge, that will change. So the second strategy, inshallah ta'ala. So the first strategy, we got it, right? We're going to learn about Islam. Everyone's going to go, listen to a lecture, read some Quran, try to read some tafsir. Implement this into your life. And that is the second strategy. How can we implement Islam into our daily life? where it becomes like you were living in Pakistan or Egypt, where people constantly say, Assalamu alaikum, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. Here in America, we don't hear that a lot. So if we're not getting that in the household, we're not getting it anywhere else. Meanwhile, in Egypt, you go walk down the street, you'll hear the adhan. It doesn't happen here. You guys need to understand that. There is no Islam for your children outside of your household. It's very important to understand that fact. Once you understand that fact, then you'll be more diligent in the household. So we implement Islam in our life. How do we do that? Well, one thing you can do is you can speak in terms of salah prayer, times. So if your son asks you, hey, when are we going to so-and-so's house? After Maghrib. When is Maghrib? 5:30. Hey, when can we go to Disney? After Fajr. When is Fajr? 6 a.m. Once you start speaking in terms of Islamic things, it'll click, even if the kid doesn't understand that. That's what you're doing. Anything in life is about repetition. Anything. You want to get better at sports? Play it. You want to get better at school? Study constantly. It's very simple. Life is very simple. You want to get better at any task? Just repeat it. And it's the same thing with Islam. The scholar, there's a famous scholar. He said, by Allah, I didn't mean to become a scholar for Allah's sake. I wanted it so people can say, I'm a scholar. But then I kept learning and learning and learning about Islam, and I said, this is the truth. And then he became a real scholar. His intentions were bad, but once he saw Islam, then he realized this is the truth. Our goal, like we said with Nuh alayhi salam, we need to put our kids in the best situation to when that time comes to make the decision, they make the right one. If we've done everything we can stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla and say, oh Allah, trust me, I did everything I could. Otherwise, Allah will hold you accountable for all the sins of your kid. And wal-'ayadhu billah, we do not want this. So, one day, I listened to a lecture about Surah Al-Baqarah, and I learned the tafsir of Surah Al-Baqarah about the orphan child and his mother who owned the cow that was eventually slaughtered in the story. So I was so excited, so I go to my dad and I say, hey Dad, did you know that in Surah Al-Baqarah the story of the cow, and the cow actually belonged to this orphan? And I started telling him, he's like, yeah, I know that story. I said, why didn't you ever tell me this story? Why is this knowledge not transferred to me? I've never knew this story. For 15 years of my life, I never knew this story. But you knew this story. And there's a lot of knowledge that the older generation has about Islam, but they think people are too young. Remember the 15-year-old in the beginning who became Christian. This 15-year-old is old enough to make a decision that he no longer wants to be Muslim. Do not think your children are not wise. Do not think of them as some child for forever. They're not. And unfortunately, if you're not giving them that spirituality, some of them go elsewhere for it. It's the natural fitrah of a human. You naturally want it. You're missing it. So, it's very important for our strategy number 2 to implement Islam in our daily lives. So what's actually amazing about us as a Muslim community is how educated we are in terms of our children. Our children are some of the most educated people in America. Yet, Islamically, they are at borderline first grade elementary level. I'm talking about, I can talk with someone who's about to become an MD doctor, okay, whom we think in our society as one of the highest forms of education you can receive, that doesn't know how to say their tahiyyat. Which is what? Elementary level. And all we need, no one's saying not to become a doctor, but all we need is this. Or at least as close as possible. We don't want this. And that's what's happening. We are so focused on dunya, ourselves, that our children become the same way. And we forget to say, hey, wait a second. Don't do the same mistake that I did. I didn't learn Islam. That's on me. But if my children don't learn Islam, what's happening here? Cyclical. We want to break the cycle. So how do we do that? We implement Islam in our daily lives. Hey, did you know that there's a dua before you enter the restroom? Hey, I'm going to post it right here on the outside of the restroom. Let's memorize this together. Hey, do you know there's a dua that you say when wearing new clothes? Hey, I learned something new, kids. I want to teach you guys. The Prophet ﷺ said, there are two words that are very light on the tongue, but heavy on the scales. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim. Very easy. Let's say it. Every time you're scared, say subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Every time you're overjoyed, say subhanallah wa bihamdihi. These things don't come naturally. They need effort. But don't come when your child is 23 years old and doesn't pray and say, I don't know what to do with my child. The reality is that you had your chance and now you're acting too late. We are reacting to something that's already happened, and we need to be proactive in our case. And I'll say this. There's a story in our community. By the way, all these stories are this community, Orlando community. A boy calls the masjid. They say, hey, I need to bury my dad. He passed away. So the imam says, okay, he says, how much is it going to be? He said, it's give or take about $1,500. It's like, $1,500? That's steep. I don't think I can afford that. He said, okay, give me a couple days, inshallah, give me a couple hours. The community will come together and most of it we'll get for you. So a day later, the boy didn't call, and the imam got the money. So the imam calls the boy. Hey, I never heard back from you. He said, don't worry, I got this cremation services for $500. I took care of it. This is in Orlando. He cremated his dad because it was cheaper. In our society, and I say our society like I'm from Palestine, but I'm not, from America. But it's unheard of to have your parents live in some type of home. Yet in America, Muslims easily do it. We know so many people in the community that are old, living by themselves, and their children live in different cities and states. Why is that the case? Don't think that they're all of a sudden going to become the same culture as you. It doesn't happen like that. You need to teach them. Hey, let me teach you something. In Islam, you need to take care of your parents. How do I show this? I'm taking care of my parents. If I'm not taking care of my parents, don't think your kids are going to take care of you. Remember, lead by example. I want my child to stop eating chocolate, but I love chocolate. And there's chocolate always in my house. So he always eats chocolate. And I can't get him to not eat chocolate unless I stop eating chocolate. So unless I come to this realization, it's not going to happen. The kid's going to look at me eating chocolate. No matter what I tell him, don't eat chocolate. It's like, well, you're eating chocolate, so I'm going to eat chocolate. We need to focus on this. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. This strategy is going to be for young adults now. I'm going to give a strategy for the young adults who are internally not sure what to do. So me as a kid, when I was trying to get myself to start praying regularly, I had these rules, and I want you guys to follow these rules if you want to start praying, if you want to start working towards your akhirah. I had 3 rules. 1, I would never fake pray. What does this mean? This means I would always pray with wudu. I'm not going to just stand there and make the motions and people see that I'm praying and therefore, okay, I prayed. My dad told me to pray, I prayed, I just did the motions. No. I made wudu and I prayed. 2nd, if anyone asked me to pray, I'd pray. I'd never make an excuse. I'd never lie and say I already prayed. If anyone asked me, hey, it's dhuhr time, did you pray? I'd say no, I'm going to get up and pray. Okay, so the first rule, never fake pray. 2nd rule, if you're ever asked to pray, pray. And the 3rd rule, if you ever remember to pray, pray right away. And if you're able to implement these 3 rules into your life, you will become regular. Now I can't think of a time when I didn't pray. It becomes regular. You think, oh man, it's dhuhr time, I need to pray. And it becomes like this thing in you. And unless you have this type of change that you want to go through yourself, no one can help you. And most adults, most young adults in here, between 13 and 18 or 20 or 25, are going through the struggle of prayer. There is no monetary gain for prayer. There is only a belief in akhirah that you will be rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah Azza wa Jal will never lie to you. So you yourself needs to change. I want to pray. Take that step, take that action towards it. You will find this emptiness in your heart filled with something you can't explain. And the last strategy, inshallah, before we start salah, is for the parents, is to bond with your kids. You know, I've seen a lot of people who, a lot of children who will say to me, oh, I really like this soccer team. Well, why? I grew up, my dad was watching the soccer team all the time, so therefore I like it. The same idea, you can transfer other things to your kid. You know, my dad was a hard worker. I saw him work hard, therefore I want to work hard. Don't think that you're working 80 hours a week and supplying your kids with a home, with food, with everything you can, and think that you're doing a parental job. Because in America, that's not enough. Maybe overseas it's enough. But here, kids need the social bond. They need to talk to their parents. If you can't have a talk with your children for more than 5 minutes, there's an issue. There's a disconnect there. You can't bond with your kid. I mean, if you can tell your kid who walks in with an F, and they understand how upset you are, and you would never accept that from them. Yet when they don't pray for the past 3 years, you keep saying they'll learn. They won't learn. It's not going to come. It's not going to be some organic epiphany. Oh, I'm going to just start praying. It doesn't happen. It might happen, but statistically, it's not going to happen to your child. Likewise, to the young adults who say, oh, my dad wasn't there. Oh, my mom doesn't understand me. Well, unless you try to talk to your parents and get them to understand you, it's not going to change. Go to your parents and talk to them one-on-one. Say, hey, Dad, I want to tell you something. And I know in Muslim culture it's very taboo. It's very hard for kids to talk to their parents. But in America, kids and parents are equal. It's very dangerous. A kid can sue their parents. A kid can put their parents in jail. This doesn't happen in Muslim countries. It's weird. But it's not weird for your children. And that's what you guys need to understand. It's weird for you, but not your children. Unless they understand that that's weird, they'll never understand, because culturally, they understand that it's not weird. So what you need to do, kids, is talk to your parents and say, hey, I need you to understand something. And this way, dialogue is easier. They're not going to some random person asking questions. They're like, look, I trust my father's opinion. I'm going to go to my father. You know, my mother, she always gives me the right advice. I'm going to go speak to my mother. This is very important. And yet, it's the last thing on our minds until our children, 23, 25, 30, 35, you find out they don't pray. You find out they don't want to pray Eid. They don't come to the masjid. You find out that they don't even claim to be Muslim anymore. We cannot be a people of reaction. We must be a people of action. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal for al-thabat. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow our youth to grow up in an Islamic environment. And we make sure that they are from Ahlul Jannah. What more can a parent ask for except for a son or daughter that makes dua for them after they passed away? There's nothing better in this world, brothers and sisters in Islam. Invest in your children, inshallah, and it'll be an investment in akhirah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله وأقم الصلاة.
Assalamu alaikum. I thank Brother Mohammad, Ahmed for giving khutbah at AMCC today. Such a beautiful message. May Allah give us tawfiq to implement in our lives. He's the Amir of Qabilatun Noor Orlando and has brought excellent Al-Maghrib speakers, programs and classes to AMCC and Orlando. Inshallah, next week Imam Azhar Subedar will be giving Jummah khutbah and will do an evening program after Isha, which is at 7. I urge all of you to join. Come, his topic is Quran track, the beginning, and we'll also serve the dinner, inshallah. Our billboard campaign is still ongoing with Why Islam billboards on I-4, Highway 434 and 1792. There's a phone number on the billboards for people to call and ask questions about Islam. It is not your phone number, by the way, it's a Why Islam number. So they'll inshallah get questions and they will answer about Islam and their questions, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, our free clinic has seen about 261 patients in November. We do need volunteers for the clinic: doctors, dentists, nurses, nurse practitioners, physician assistant, medical and dental assistant, plus office staff. The operations are growing fast. Please volunteer your time and donate generously for this sadaqah jariyah. We also need volunteers to help at the jail and give khutbah and weekly Islamic classes. The program is still ongoing, but we do not have many people to give the khutbah, so please volunteer and contact Brother Atif or Brother Taisir about it. If you'd like to get notification on WhatsApp, please share your cell phone number. I'll be happy to send you the message about the weekly programs and the stuff going on in Orlando. All these services and the dawah activities are not possible without your support. Please donate generously to AMCC. Stop by the donation boxes and the kiosk outside if you like to donate using your credit cards. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar.